vidas de muerte.
Cover your ears.
You are not gonna like this.
Thank you for coming on to the Downing Cut. Today's guest is Johnny Jones. Awesome name. A Texas born actor who honed his craft in college theater, served in the United States Marine Corps from 2012 to 2020. Thank you for your service,
you.
sir. And after his military service, he reignited his passion for performing, diving into the Seattle's vibrant art scene through improv at Pike Place's unexpected productions and contributing to local indie films as both an actor and a producer. Welcome to the Downing Cut, Johnny
Thank you very much.
Jones.
Thank you for having me, Joe. Really excited to, be a part of this and, you know, talk. If I can help anybody or if you could help me, man, I'm excited to speak,
That's what all of this is about. It's helping our community. What first I gotta ask you, like, dude, is that your real name, Johnny Jones, or is that your
It is.
actor
I'm
name?
actually a junior, so my dad's name is Johnny Jones and mine is as well. Everybody asks me, is it Jonathan? Is it just John? It's Johnny, yeah.
Oh, it just rolls off the tongue, Johnny Jones.
It's like a superhero.
I
That's
mean, it
how I
just
was always
sounds
told. Like it's
yeah,
just like
yeah.
alliteration. Or I'm a boxer or whatever, or UFC fighter, right?
So that's why I was like, it's a nice name, very nice name. What so tell me, how did your journey start? Where did that love of acting,
Oh
filmmaking, where did
man.
that start from?
So it actually started with my mother. So my mom was in the arts when she was younger. She went to school for fashion and then she had me and went to school for nursing. But when I was younger, she pushed me to do different types of art, piano, and so on and so forth. But there was a stint, and I still have pictures, and I gotta find it. I was looking for this, but what she had, like, I had little headshots when I was 5 or 6. I was on an episode of Sesame Street as a kid. The episode where Rosie O'Donnell played the Wicked Witch of I don't know which direction, but one of them. And I was in a couple math books and stuff. But apparently, I liked to cry, and my mom said I didn't really want to do it anymore, so I stopped. Um, Around early YouTube, got really big into YouTubing. Oh man, I was like 2007, 2008. I got really big into YouTubing, and I had my little camcorder. And then went to college, did a bunch of drama stuff, and I just had a love for it. I really loved being behind the camera, so I started behind. When I was in the service, I would always be the guy with the camera if we were doing something. So if we were out and I wasn't actually active, I would always go out and with my camera. We deploy. I deployed 3 times. I always took my camera, and so I kept that love throughout. I auditioned for some plays while I was in the service, but obviously I didn't have the time, so I would audition and not do it. But, yeah, as soon
Yeah.
as I got out, I picked it up again. I created a new YouTube. I ended it since then, but, it was to create videos to help folks get out of the military because at the time there wasn't a really good transition, and all the information was gate kept by folks that were retiring. So I used a lot that platform to speak about it. So, and then I came here and did improv.
Why was it gate kept? Why didn't how come that transition
Yeah,
phase isn't
it's a lot
easy?
about, oh, you haven't been in a long time, so you don't really need that much, to transition because you've only been here for 4 years, you've only been here for 8 years. And so that was a lot of the sentiment when we were getting out. And just in general, information is just not as easily to be found. And there's a lot of bills and acts that are looking to counteract that right now. Actually, a couple days ago, I received a survey in the mail from DOD asking, how was your transition out and how can we improve? So it sounds like the folks that are in now should have a better time of getting out than people that got out, during and right after the war.
It sounds
So
like it's kind of like bias, and it's a biased way of thinking. Um, how did your time in the Marine Corps influence your approach to storytelling and
Whoa,
filmmaking?
I will say, is it a benefit or is it a is it a benefit or is it holding me back when I'm saying I'm very grounded because of it? I think because of it and a lot of things I experienced, and I got to go to a lot of different countries, and so it grounded me as a human being on
That's
Earth.
cool.
And I feel like every story I write is always from a grounded point of view, And so that's why I said, is it a struggle? Because fantasy might be harder for me to write now because like my mindset is so grounded in telling the story of humans as a whole, as a
Yeah.
humanity, not necessarily like maybe the black story or the white story or different story, but the human story is like because in the military you were all green, right? So we were all the same. We got treated like crap together, and we had good times together. So I kind of bring that into my storytelling as well.
Does anyone in the military, like being a close friend, kind of inspired you to do any kind of story?
So I have a group of friends that when I joined, I've known them for about 12 years now. Um, they're all the you probably have seen like memes where it's like, oh, the military group of friends, and they're all completely different walks of life. You might have a country guy, a guy from the inner city, somebody that
Yeah.
got their citizenship from joining. Like I had a guy that was from the UK and he became a citizen by joining the Marine Corps. And so because my group is so desperate when it comes to or disparate when it comes to like where we're from and our experiences, uh, I actually want to write a hangover-esque story, kind of like that, because the amount of times I've seen those type of groups go through different antics and my own group's antics, and so I want to capture that as well. Um, I will say I'm inspired and I'm really happy for Vet TV coming out because it wasn't out when I was in, but that is a really
Oh.
interesting channel that's online that does capture a lot of the stories that resonate with me from my time in. So I hope to maybe get something on there.
What's the URL?
It is, yep,
Vettv.com or
you got it.
what is
It's
it?
pretty yeah,
Okay,
VetTV, VETTV.com.
great. I'll link it in our show notes.
Thanks, sir.
So transitioning from improv to indie films involves different types of
Mm.
creativity. How do you balance the spontaneity with improv with the structured demand of producing and directing?
Yeah, okay, that is a great question. Thank you for asking that one. So, I played with it in different ways, and the folks of some of the stuff I produced can probably speak to it. The very first thing I ever created was a show called Startup Pulmonary Tech, and I will give you the link it in here as well. Uh, how I approached that one was it was very improv. A lot of the folks in there had improv training, and I said, "All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this script, and I'm going to provide you with as little direction when it came to action as possible, just the lines. Let us improv how the show is going to go." And poor Joe, our our cinematographer, he was like, "Okay, run through it once so I can see where you guys are going to go." And I think it made the show feel real because it was supposed to be a mockumentary, and so we didn't want everything that feels so prescribed. So we kept a lot of the physical motion up to the actor, how they felt in the moment. And we had a lot of creative things happen from there. Even as far as when I talk about that show, I always say, man, about 60% of it was written. And the other 40% we improv it. And it created some of the best jokes during the screenings came from the improv section. Some of the best like received stuff came from there was a portion where Audrey Kohler and Nick Ponce, who played Nick and Sandra in the show, they have a conversation. And about 90% of that conversation is improv. And she just unloaded so much depth into the story of this character. And most people say that is one of their favorite parts of the show because she went so deep into the character and that was complete improv. So I feel as though that allowing people to have that freedom because I've expressed that on stage helps some actors, some like to be directed, but a lot of I've noticed really enjoy the freedom of can I try this? Yeah, go for it. Try let's do a take where you're allowed to try exactly how you feel. And then we can talk about it after. A lot of times, man, they come up with some great stuff.
Did you have to take multiple takes doing that?
We usually did a couple of like relatively prescribed takes, like, all right, let's do it once, let's stick with that, how you did it, and then a fully improv scene where I'm not gonna direct how they are, and then a lot of times we picked a lot from that improv part, mainly because we did it a couple of times prior to that fully improv one, so they already had it down by that point.
Right. Kind of
Yeah, it was
rehearsal.
kind
What
of like
did you edit
rehearsal,
it?
yeah, a filmed rehearsal pretty much, and it's not I would say it's not for everyone, so if you watch these, like, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
not for everyone, it's a tight-knit group was really something that we had, and it's something that's really beneficial if you're trying to do that.
Now, did you edit that
No,
film?
actually, KJ Gerhard,
Okay.
edited it. I actually met him in he was in SFI and I was an actor in one of his capstone project in film school and he was gonna pay me. I can't remember how much it was. And I said, you know what, how about this? Don't pay me, but help me with one of my films. And then there we go. We can just do a trade. And Now he's one of my closest friends out here,
Nice.
and we're always doing something together. So yeah.
You mentioned, like, was that difficult to edit? Because if you're having different variations of the
Mhm.
scene, it's like, were you, like, next to him? Were you doing calls? Were you just kinda sitting
The
with him as he
camera
edited
is
and say, "This is
also
the scene"?
was also improv. So he was able to, as you doing whip pans, he was able to swap to something else
Yeah.
that was happening. Or we always had
Okay.
a stationary camera as the B cam, so he could swap to the B cam if he was doing something else. So it was difficult, but it also
Nice.
provided him a lot of. He always said it provided him a lot of options. So if, like, yeah, it
Yes.
provided him a lot of options. I'll give it to you there. So would I do it again like that? Only with that group, most likely, or a group some similar, because we were so entwined,
Yeah.
intertwined. But I only directed one episode of that. Morgan Dukes that directed the other
Okay.
two episodes because I acted it in as well, and I found that producing, directing, and acting my first.
Morgan who?
Morgan Dukes. Yes, I'll make sure she's on your show. I'm
Okay.
gonna
I
call her out
just
right now. Morgan, I'm calling you out to be on this show.
because I'm curious, because I mean, as an
Mhm,
editor, there's certain scenes that I would film one way and film another way, so I have the
mhm,
option and knowing which way I want to do the story. But as an editor you're directing the film, you've written the script, and some other editors coming in, I would wonder, like, are they concerned about, am I making the right choice for
mm.
you in your vision? And is this how you want the story to go? Like, were there any kind of revisions after
Not a
he had
single
like a
one, because he
draft?
acted it and he was on set every day as well. So he understood exactly
Oh, okay.
what we were doing,
Yeah.
and I would confer with him a lot of times before we hit action. "Hey, KJ, is there anything from the editing standpoint that you're gonna be concerned with before we do this improv one? Can they stay within this box? Everybody stay within this box." And then they would move because he like, "Don't let them go too far out that way." So we did put some constraints, but mainly it was, spacing, what I would say. It was spacing.
That's helpful in being an actor and being on
Yeah.
set. So I was kind of curious. What about now? You said most people did had that improv
Mhm.
experience or background. Did you have any actors that
We
didn't?
did, and some of those, folks were I would say little apprehensive about doing the improv, and so we say, "All right, well, you don't have to improv your character, then you can go off script, and then the other characters will improv how they respond to you, but not give you something to improv with." So if that makes sense, if I know that you're gonna say hi, I don't go skibbity doo dah, and then you have to figure it out. They'll
Right.
just respond to that character the way that they're expecting, so that he or she does not have to worry about trying to do the improv. So we found that out along
Interesting.
the way, and it worked
Yeah.
pretty well.
Did they loosen up afterwards and
Yeah, I
start
would say some
to
people are
kind of
very rigid in, like, how it all depends on your method as an actor. Some people are very rigid in how you
right?
act, like, "I wanna prepare this way, I'm doing it this way, I'm doing it this way, I wanna know how," and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying anything wrong with that. Some people might be watching like, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
improv," like, on t so, everybody has to the each their own, you know? But I will say after startup, we haven't done it again only because everything else after that has been it didn't fit. It fit in that mockumentary style where it was one camera whipping around, but it doesn't fit, you know, every single genre, every
Yeah.
single filming style. So we haven't found a time to use it yet.
As a filmmaker, who wears many hats as an actor, writer, director, cinematographer? How do you prioritize which role to focus on during a project?
Ooh. So I think the first thing I do is figure out what do I want to gain from that project, and then I try to fit myself into that role. But I've also I built a community here. And so there's a lot of people who, when we started that project of startup, it initially started as, let's do something for our reel, right? I had the script written already. I funded it myself. I was like, let's do something for our reel. And so a lot of us, it was our first time acting, my first time acting in a while on camera. A lot of people's first time on set. Cinematographer, he had done cinematography for a while, but it was his first time doing narrative like that. And so we all grew together. And so I promise you, I'm getting to your answer. Uh, while growing, everybody has found their niche or the thing that they want to do. And so I'm finding that producing and occasionally being in front of the camera is my niche. I come from a project program management background. I'm in business school. Don't let my mom see this because it's a secret from her. But I'm I'm building myself to be a producer, it seems to be, right? So I'm leaning more and more and more into that role and allowing and not taking away from the opportunity for others to grow on my projects. After the first one, I realized that, okay, it's fun doing a lot, it's cool doing a lot, but I need to choose one or two things because it's almost greedy, right? For me, unless it's a project specifically that you want to do that. But for me, I want to build my community up. So Joe Kyle, he's always going to be my cinematographer unless there's somebody else that comes in and Joe's like, yeah, I want to work with them. You know, I co-produce all the time with Luis. Morgan is one of my favorite directors to work with. I have a community and we all branch out. We work with different people, different things, but I always give them the first chance to go, do you want to do this? Okay. If not, then we'll have somebody else, or maybe I'll lead in and do it. So that's kind of how I hope that answers
That's
your
great.
question, Joe. I went on a little bit longer.
No,
Okay,
it
good, good.
does. Yeah, I mean, you kind of zoned in. You figured out what you
Yeah.
enjoy producing, acting. What about the directing side? I mean, is that still in your wheelhouse, or is that you're handing that off
I
to if
hand it
there's a
off most
project
of the
that you
time,
write?
actually. There is a project, a really big project that I'm doing next year. Just like you, I'm holding it. I'm gonna come back. I'm holding it tight so you bring me back. Um, but next year, I'm doing a year of pre-production. So Angel Camacho, who is also one of my close friends out here, you'll be happy to hear I'm doing a nice long pre-production and putting a good amount of money into this project. So I will be directing it. It'll be my second time directing, and I'm taking. It's also another reason why I'm taking a long time to make sure I understand like what vision I want, so I can articulate it to the cast and crew
Yeah,
properly.
this is a feature.
No, actually, it's going to be a pilot, but I want to take all the
Oh,
time I can to make it look and feel as perfect as possible. So if I need to drop a couple
yeah,
more, dollars into it to make sure that it's good, then I'll do it as for whatever I can. So
that's great because that's one thing I've always told the actually crews like we're not in a hurry. We're gonna make sure this
yeah.
is end to the end right. So, can you describe a moment when your experience in front of the camera has, as an actor, informed a crucial decision that you made behind the camera as a director or cinematographer?
Ooh, okay. That's a good one. So there's a film that we haven't finished yet because we need to wait for the winter and it get really cold. I will say I'm one of the main actors in it, and one of my good friends, Nick Ponce, he is directing it. Luis Sixia, which I know you know very well, he's producing it, and Joe Kyle, like I mentioned, he's the cinematographer, and I work with them, fixing up the script and getting it ready and everything like that. And we were talking about where we should film it, and we found the perfect bench that I purchased and brought to Luis's house to go in the backyard to be in. I actually still has that bench. And I will say that the way we were able to sit on that bench and make it work for how myself and my co-star Audrey Kohler, man, that was such a great selection because there were so many options. We're like, well, we can just sit in chairs with a table in between us, we can lean on it, but a bench just, and I don't want to ruin the story, but the bench just felt, because it forced us to be closer, and it's kind of like a love story, and it forced us to be closer. And I was like, I'm very glad that we chose this because I was able to, you know, pull myself away when I didn't want to be. And I feel like it conveyed. Now we're not done. We have to wait for winter time, which means I need to grow my hair back. But I think when you see it, you'll understand what I mean, Joe.
That makes sense. So, but you
Mhm.
write,
I
correct?
do. Yes, sir.
And you direct. You know how to
Yes, sir.
direct. Have you ever been a cinematographer
I
as well?
actually started. That was where I started. I was always behind the camera.
Okay.
It wasn't until I met Joe
Yeah.
that I started to step away from behind the camera. But in the other production company I own, F7 Media, which I got my little cup right here, plug plug, um, is a commercial. We do commercials and we film content for folks, and I'm always behind the camera there. So I'm behind the camera in a different way, but I still
Yeah.
utilize a lot of the skill sets I learned doing narrative and stuff over there as
So I think as a fellow filmmaker, and I know there's a lot of directors and writers who have a different cinematographer. What's your reason for choosing a separate cinematographer versus doing it yourself?
well. Ooh, okay. So I feel as though I'm able to focus on my part of the pie, as you can say, and I can inform, and he can focus on that. Going back to my experience in startup, split braining can be quite hard, especially something stressful and you're time bound, let's say that day. Um, or if you're trying to make multiple decisions on set and you're the person that everybody has to go to. So you're sitting there trying to set up your shot, and then now somebody's late. So you're the producer. So now you gotta talk to them about being late and coordinate this. Oh, the permit, the cops have a question about just I found that split braining allows you to do both jobs not as great as you could have done. And so I find that I built
Sure.
this relationship with Joe, and I can just half say a sentence, and he's like, "I know exactly what you mean," and he can do and beautiful. And so I found that that
Awesome.
relationship and the bond we built is more valuable than me just getting behind the hand camera because I want to, stroke my own ego because I'm also behind the camera. I find that
Yeah.
it's more beneficial to, feed into someone and watch them grow as well. So that's kind of the reason why I stepped back.
That makes sense. How does your process of writing a script differ from when you also be able to direct it and act it in a film?
Oh, okay. So I find that I put a little bit less action when I'm writing something that I know I'm going to direct. But if I'm going to give the script to someone, I almost overwrite to make sure that they see what's in my head, and then I have a discussion with them. But if I know it's in my head already, I won't put like notes for the director in there because I'm gonna be that person. So the one I'm looking at right now on the screen for next year, there's not a lot of notes or things that I would write for the director because I'm gonna be that person. So I'm like, all right, I already know what I'm gonna do there. I'm already know what I mean there. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would adjust my writing. Um, I learned that from doing Startup episode 3 because I was not directing that. Morgan was directing that, and so I made sure okay, I need to put some things in here so she knows what me as the writer, what I mean by that, or what's the intent behind this, or what the subtext might be here so that she can convey it. Because, she's not in my head. I might go, how did you not see that? Well, because I wrote it and I know all these, details that no one else knows. So I need to make sure that's on the paper for her to know. And obviously, she's a director. So it's ultimately her script was to be on set. So she can either change it a little bit, which again, as somebody who, if you wrote it and someone else is directing it and you happen to be on set, you got to understand that is their script. Once you get on set, it's no longer your script. So that's a hard part to understand. It's like, but I wrote it. Yeah, but it's
It's a hard part to
theirs.
let
Yeah,
go.
it's hard, and it's theirs. And I implore you, if you're a writer, director, write something and be on set when someone else directs it. It helps you learn to step away and understand like you did your part and now you're giving it someone else to do theirs as well. That is hard though. I'm not gonna lie, it's very hard.
Yeah, there is an element of control.
Hmm.
I think that comes into play when you're writing script. I mean, it was for me. I mean, honestly, with Cousin,
Mm.
I wrote it. I directed it. I was a cinematographer for it because there were certain shots that I really wanted, that I envisioned, and then acting in
Hmm.
it. I think that was the difficult part because then I had to let go of the
Yep.
camera, right? But it's definitely that, and it could be my personality. I'm sure there's others out there that have that control
Mhm.
mindset. There's people out there that say, "Hey, just make it look good." That's all I care about, right?
I was the
So,
control person. I still kind of am, and I think that the way I needed to grow was what I'm trying to do now, which is giving different parts of things to people. Because I am, and you ask anybody, I'm the person that's like, "Oh, I want to do it this way. I want to do it because you want to what's in your head." But I think that in this industry it's very rare outside of independent that you're able to do all the things like that, right? You're not rarely gonna be the producer, actor, director, cinematographer in like a larger budget thing. Maybe if you're hired on, So
right.
I think it's really good to learn to separate, learn to understand like, oh, I'm doing this role. I'm gonna do my best in this role, and I'm gonna trust. Trust is something else. You have to trust those people. They're professionals as well. They love their craft and trust that they can do. Verify obviously, look at your monitors, double check the audio while if you can, you're near but I think trusting is very important.
So you have a great collaboration. How do you ensure that your creative vision stays aligned with the collaborative nature, the safer life editor? Do you still edit at
I
all,
do.
or do you usually hand that off
I do.
now?
I collaborate on editing. So myself and KG were again very close, and so we'll I'll shoulder edit. So like I'll be like, hey man, you're editing today. Let's just look, and I'll watch you edit. And mainly because I want to learn from him how he edits. And then maybe
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that I've seen that he does. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start doing that. I like the way you set that up. But we'll shoulder circle. We'll just have discussions. I love just sitting and talking with people, especially about a project. I'll sit and talk before we start. Like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Da da da. I'll just word bomb it, and they all get the sentiment. And so you just do periodic check-ins, whether it's pre-production and you're making sure that everybody understands your vision every time you do a pre-production check. It could be even before you go on set. And you're like, hey, everybody, thank you for coming today. We're about to start filming. I know it's early. We got snacks over there, but we're trying to do it, and just like maybe re-vomit a smaller version of your vision there. So everybody's reinitiated into your vision throughout. It doesn't have to take long. You don't have to do a dissertation, but maybe like, yeah, we're really trying to do this, especially if you're doing a certain scene. Talk to the crew about how you feel about that scene. Maybe they're like, oh, I didn't know he really wanted to do like that. Okay, let me adjust this. So I feel like just verifying and not assuming that people know once because you told them once, maybe 2 months ago at the first pre-production meeting.
So being an actor, what's a unique challenge that you face directing yourself for a scene, and then how do you overcome that?
Oh, self-doubt. I feel like every time I feel myself, I look at him like, oh, that was crap. Okay. And then somebody's like, no, no, you did. I'm like, that was crap. Let's try it again. And Luis is always like, Johnny, I think you got it. I think you're just being really hard on yourself. I think you got it. I think, yeah, self-doubt is can be a killer when you're directing yourself. Because you hear yourself in your head,
Right.
and then you hear yourself on the recording, and it sounds nothing like in your head. You're like, oh, I don't like the inflection. I hate all of that. And everybody who's normally hearing you in the world, they're like, no, that's how you sound. You're fine. It sounds great.
That's
Yeah, it's like you sound great. It's like, okay.
Is there a lot of playback then on
Yeah, when
set?
I'm
You go,
there,
let
when
me
I'm
check
there, I'm like,
that.
can I see it, please? Justin too was the one that Nick's directing. I'm like, please, can I see it? You were looking at me for like 5 minutes straight. I just want to make sure I didn't look stupid. Obviously, Nick, I know he wouldn't have let me look stupid, but self-conscious sometimes. So, did you feel that way as
How
well?
was your
Were you long, sir?
Oh, I mean, for me, I was more or less, it was kind of funny because I would run lines with Philip a couple
Mm.
times. I think my biggest fear was forgetting my lines.
Oh,
And then because I'm like, I should know this. I
oh
wrote
my
it.
gosh, yeah.
That type of mentality. I'm like, oh, what if I forget? But I think we just locked in.
Mm.
And I think, and you're right, when you're splitting your brain and you're thinking about other things, for me, it was just shot. What does the shot look like?
Mm.
If I'm in front of the camera, let me check that, make sure the vision that I have for that shot list, is it going to click in there? And it did. I mean, David Nance, wonderful guy. I mean, he was the one that was behind camera for some of the scenes that we were like in the shop and walking through and stuff. Um, but yeah, I think I've been acting for so long that my wife, if anyone's going to be a critic, it's going to be your partner in life who says, no, you can do better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's great because if you're a director on a film set and you're acting, when you're acting, you know, I don't know if actors would tell me, hey, you can do that better or whatever. But my wife was always up to the challenge saying, no, accents, it's too over the top or it's,
Mm.
you don't have enough of it, that type of thing. So
That's
measuring.
true.
But
Directing the director who's also acting, it's like maybe they did it the way they
yeah,
they thought. I can see that. Maybe he delivered it the way
yeah,
he wanted to,
yeah,
and I don't want to. What? Who am I to correct that director, right? I can see what you mean.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, there's that authority figure and
Mm.
stuff. But I think when you have that collaboration, you have that
Yes.
trust, like you were saying with people. Then you're like, hey, no, give it to me. I need some criticism. Am I doing it well? What
Mm.
you're doing, and people are saying, no, you
Yeah.
sound great. You look great. Everything's working,
Yeah.
right?
I would say one mistake I made in the beginning was having a monitor facing me during a scene where bad idea. Because you think you're not looking at it, you think you're not double checking it, and then you look at the playback and the eyes
Yeah.
doing this all the time, but you're looking over there. I mean, you mess the scene. You perfect delivery, but eyes are flip flopping over it. Yeah, you don't want that.
Oh, that is
So I'm
hilarious.
like,
That's
I'll look at that
funny.
playback afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. How's your experience with improv at Unexpected Productions shaped your approach to directing actors
Mm.
in your films, especially actors who don't have that improv experience?
I feel as though it made it difficult at first because I thought people had that skill set. I didn't realize how much improv actually gave me as an actor. And so I feel like I had to learn that, okay, not everybody's an improvist. You know, not everybody can take this small little direction and go, got it. I know exactly what that is. I'm just gonna make it up. Not every Some people need the questions. And improv, you ask 2 or 3 questions and then everything else until the end of that scene is on you to figure out. And so starting in improv before I started acting here in Seattle, I think um, it didn't give me bad habits, but it gave me habits that were good as an actor, but I needed to unlearn and figure out how to reutilize when I'm behind the camera, I would say. Because the direction I would give myself is not necessarily the direction I should give someone who doesn't have improv experience.
I've done the improv, and I think one of the things that I've learned is really kind of you throw away the inhibitions,
Hmm.
right? And as an actor, that's an important thing. But a lot of actors don't have that. They still want to look good and
Oh,
be
yeah.
this, and they want to be tough, and they don't. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, and so I try to take a character that I think looks tough and always plays tough
Hmm.
roles and flip it
Uh,
because I want to play into the bias of whoever's looking at him and his friends, his peers, whatever. Everyone knows, oh, he's a tough guy. Well, then how can I make it where he's not a tough
like
guy?
Denzel in
How
Training
can
Day,
I bring
right?
that level
He
and
was always the
switch it?
good guy, and no one
Yes,
thought he was gonna play the villain.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I think part of that is a little bit of an improvisation of wanting to let go,
Mm.
just let go. You don't have to be this structure that you're always in and films that you always play in. Um, So, how do you infuse authenticity into your films, especially from drawing from your diverse
Mm.
life
I would
experiences?
say in the dialogue, I try to make my dialogue feel as real as possible. Can I do a lot of reading with my wife and everything, and like, does it sound like a human would have said this? Or does it sound like Siri reading it back to you? Because sometimes it sounds, you'll watch something, you're like, ooh, that sounds like an AI has said it back. And so like I am so adamant on, does this sound real? Does it sound like a human, And if I have to like look up how someone talks from that part of the company, okay, I need to look this up. Can I assume? So I feel like the my authenticity that I focus on is dialogue. And does the dialogue fit that person where they're from, you know, uh, maybe their upbringing or background. So I would not say something the same way that you would say something because we came from different places. I grew up on the East Coast. And so like I'm not saying you didn't. I'm assuming you're from here, Joe. So are you from here, Joe? Let me just clear that up before I make a mistake.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
good. So we're on different sides of
oh
the
yeah, no,
country,
no,
right?
I
So,
I was born in California, raised in
got it. I
Washington. Yeah,
assumed you were from Seattle, so I was wrong. So
yeah.
different sides of the country, like I assumed. And I would not say something the way you would say it because you're from the West Coast and I'm from the East Coast. So
Hmm.
why would I write those characters to speak the same exact way? And so I try to bring that authenticity into it because you don't want to assume someone speaks or acts or is a certain way just because that's your truth in your life. And I think like that. Yeah.
So how do you? That's a good analogy. Let's go down this little
Yeah.
rabbit hole here because if you wrote a script for someone who's from the East Coast, you've been an actor, you hire the actor, and you're like, I don't think I would say it like that as the character.
Yeah.
How do you massage that with
So
them?
can I go from like the whole process how I would do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think I know that when I speak to an actor, I'm like, hey, this is kind of what I think. I always grab examples. Hey, this is an example of somebody from the East Coast. And it not always will be an actor. A lot of times it'll be a YouTuber that's a vlogger from that town because now they're just speaking to the camera in the way that they speak. Like, hey, this is somebody from New Jersey or New York. This is how we actually speak. It's not to forget about it. And you think New Yorkers think, oh, water or coffee. I mean, kind of, but we have obviously different twangs. So it's important to understand how that person from that area speaks. And then it's just like small tweaks from there. And I obviously not gonna be perfect. Right? Somebody from California is not going to do the coffee so easily because it's so different than what you're used to speaking. So maybe there's a middle ground there. Maybe it's okay to not you can say coffee. And it's like, all right, well, you can't do that. That's fine. We can move on. Or I can adjust the script to say tea. Get a little tea because tea is easier than saying coffee. So
Interesting.
make some
Huh.
adjustments,
So you just
help
use,
them out.
yeah. Have you ever had a situation like that?
Not necessarily. Most people that I've worked with so far has done a great job of like researching and doing their best, but also casting too, making sure the people are casted to fit what you're looking for. You know, uh, I've also rewritten or adjusted characters because I wanted a certain person to play a certain role. I'm like, oh, you know what? I really think you do a good job of this role. I'm the writer. Let me talk to the writer myself and let me adjust some stuff to fits like you because I really want you in this role. And not falling in love
Yeah.
with every character and every like mannerism. I'll make some adjustments. I really want that person in.
As an actor, what kind of roles are you usually drawn to?
Drawn to versus get. So I feel like I always get kind of like the nice guy, everyman roles, right? I want to place
Why is
because I
that?
think I'm just a nice guy, everyman in general. So I think it's easy. It's hard to imagine me just playing a jerk or something like that because I guess I'm not really. Um, but I want to. I want to play someone who's completely opposite of me. I want a child or a
Yeah.
complete like a really emotional role because I feel like I always get like the upbeat. Hey guys, what's going on? I get that all the time. Commercials get that. Auditions. I'm always that. So I want to try something different.
So you've never played a villain or anything like that?
Now in my head maybe in head canon.
I mean, you're a writer. Have you've never written
No,
yourself
I
as a
haven't.
villain?
Every time I write something that's supposed to be bad, I always end up giving it to someone else and not acting in that movie at all. Like even the one I'm talking about now for next year, I was like, oh, I could play the bad guy.
Yeah.
No, there's somebody else
Yeah.
who can play it better. And then I just don't do it.
Well, that is funny. What advice would you give to aspiring filmmakers, whether they're starting to act or they want to do what you did, start a production
Mm,
company, or want to direct or how to write? Like, what kind of main kind of beginning tips, things to focus on for someone who's new?
This is very timely because I just met one of my interns who asked me the same question today. One thing I said is get out there and do it. Don't worry about the gear you have. Obviously, you need a camera, right? But they're not wrong when they say you can start with an iPhone. They just starting with this skill set, right? You build that skill set. A lot of people are like, I don't have a good camera. I don't have crew. Look, you can do something solo. There's so many people that do it solo. You get a friend or you go join a crew, but do whatever you can. Do a 48, something to just get out there and get that skill set going. And it also builds your confidence. Because if you're thinking about, if you're in the position to be motivated in that way, sometimes even me, you need that confidence. You need to build the confidence. So I think getting out there and doing it, as well as getting as much advice from a bunch of different sources, and then figuring out which advice is best for you. Because sometimes people will say, never make a movie with your own money. Never, that is a terrible thing. But if you have no means to get investors, you're not getting any crowdfunding, what are you supposed to do? Just do nothing? That advice may not apply to you. I funded my own stuff because I wanted to get out there. I wanted to do it. And I was blessed with the ability to do it. So try. And even if your funding is $100 just to pay people for food. Hey, I bought pizza. I'm sorry, guys, I can't afford, but let's make this thing together. Take the advice, take everything you can, and then apply it to yourself as it fits. Because some people's advice are for when you're set up in a certain position and they're giving you just that advice. And some advice are dead on for where you are at that period of time in your life. Just like relationship advice. You don't want to give marriage advice to someone who's not even dating yet. Right? Why are you doing that?
Your background in acting, did you ever take any kind of formal classes or workshops or
David
anything like
and
that?
Angela,
Other than
Mighty
the improv?
Tripod. David
Okay.
and Angela, Mighty Tripod.
Glad you tried
Actually,
that.
I started at Unexpected Productions. They are directly upstairs, and I was told you need to go upstairs if you want to act. And so I met David Hogan and Angela, and I went out to Mighty Tripod. I did a bunch of their classes. I met my crew, the people who I'm acting with and making movies now. I met most of them in that class, and then goes from there. So yeah, that was my formal classes. I plan on
Nice.
going to some more this winter. I saw they just released some more classes.
Was there anything thought provoking. I'm actually going to be interviewing
Oh,
David,
nice.
so that's going to be good. But is there anything like thought provoking that you thought, oh, okay, this gave me a better perception on acting? I mean, even though you did it when you were 2, but was there anything that like you were like, oh, that's a different way of
Yeah,
thinking
I
about it?
remember we had I can't remember what scene it was now, but I had a comedy scene with one of my good friends, Trent Hadler, and it was a comedy scene, and we were like, okay, I guess this is how we should approach it. And she was like, that's great, Angela, the she, uh, that's great, but you don't have to act the same way they did in the actual movie. She's like, and you don't have to approach the comedy the same way the actors approach the comedy. You know, when someone says, I want a Will Ferrell like movie, that doesn't mean just be Will Ferrell. It means that's the spirit. And that was, I think that was some of the best advice because I apply it not just to comedy, but to everything. If I say, oh, I want to make a show like Atlanta, it doesn't mean I'm just going to recreate Atlanta. It means I like that vibe, the way it made you feel, and I'm going to take it and make it my own and be inspired by it. I will say I apply that when I write, when I was writing even last night, and I apply when I act, and even some of the advice I give people, if I'm giving direction at all, it'll be inspired by it. So I think that was probably the single most impactful advice I was given throughout all the stuff I've done. So
So basically, do
do
it
it
your
your
way.
way.
Do it with your skills, your personality characteristics into a playback character,
Exactly.
right?
Yes,
So
sir.
tap those beats. What's your favorite tech in
All
production?
right. So I have two, and they're pretty related. So one is Studio Binder, phenomenal, love it, very organized, and so I again come from a program management background. I do value organization, um, and the second one is Rivet AI. I actually recently discovered it. I was not okay. I know I work at Microsoft and stuff. We're all big on AI, and I swear you know Microsoft daddies. I'm sorry, but I wasn't big on AI for a long time. You know, I was very proud of being able to do things on my own. I had pride in my human brain making something. But I
Yeah.
I stumbled upon this program called Rivet AI, and it does a lot of like script breakdown stuff for you. I fed it my script, and it was able to pick out every prop, gave you suggestions on how you should budget these things, what date. I was like, okay, this is great. And so I put them together.
Oh,
They're two
interesting.
different programs. I'll actually send you the link so you if you want to
Yeah.
put it in this. They're very similar, but they are different enough that you can. I plan on using Rivet. I've been playing with it a lot lately, and I'm definitely going to use it for every project I do. But I want to take the stuff from that and put it into Studio Binder because I find the pre-production being organized. And I've seen your notebooks, I've seen your binders on your sets. Okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Being organized is
Yeah.
is
We use
yes,
Studio
so
Binder.
helpful, so helpful. And so that is my favorite
Yeah.
filmmaking tech outside,
How did you see
Huh?
your notebooks?
I saw it because
How
you
did
had
you
a
see your
lot of
notebooks?
pictures with Luis and stuff. And when I was at your screening, all the BTS pictures at the end of the
Yeah.
film, you had your notebooks and stuff. I saw
Yeah.
Luis was like, hey, Joe, man. Actually, because of your notebook, Joe was like, you need to meet. And that's actually how we met the first time on Zoom. He was like, you need to talk to this guy because you guys think the same. I have you probably
Oh
can't see
yeah.
it, but there's a notebook that says producer right back there. It's a mimicry of your notebook.
Yeah.
It's just like your man. Look, I'm telling you, I learned from you.
Well, I'm a PMP too,
Okay,
so
there we go.
I get
There
it.
is
I get
a
it. Yeah. Yeah. There's a
yep,
thread in there about
yep.
organization and tracking, and absolutely, I think I think one of the things that is always useful in
Mm,
collaboration is making sure everybody knows what's happening. And the only way I could do that is get everybody a notebook and say, here's the
yep.
shot list, here's what we're shooting, here's the script, here's the locations, here's the call sheet, everything that they would need so that they can, especially the production manager, so that she would know what to do or
Mhm.
how to call out certain things and kind of help me kind of focus on certain things. Okay, my next
Okay.
question, which is you kind of already answered it, was about AI. How do you feel about AI in the film industry?
Okay. So I kind of already answered it, right? I've been leery of AIs forever, right? Because I have a lot of value in ability. We all work hard for our ability to do something, our ability to write, our ability to act, our ability to edit. And so I have always been leery over that. However, I feel as though if you utilize the tool to enhance your ability, but not replace your ability, I feel like it has a place. So the Rivet AI assists my organization, but it has not replaced it. I still have to go through and I'm looking at it. I'm like, okay, this is what I want. This makes sense. Thank you for doing this bit. But I'm still out there organizing. I'm still making my notebook. I'm still going and making all these human decisions. Editing, I still have a lot of use it for editing. I'm probably gonna be one of the last people to actually do it. But I think it can have a place as long as we don't try to replace, we only try to enhance.
Yeah, what about actors?
No, no,
And
no,
there's always
not
these
that part.
rumors
Not
that
that part. What I'm talking about,
yeah,
I'm talking about the technical hands-on keyboard type part, not anything on
yeah.
No, no, thank you. Nah, I'm okay with it.
There was I interviewed a writer and he had said something that they found that when they threw their script up to AI to do some analyzing and really kind of breaking it apart and make sure that the structure, all
Mhm.
that is correct. It always missed the personal
Yep.
side of the script. It always missed the emotion part. That was really
I
interesting.
use one of
So
those green light
obviously,
coverage.
grammar and all
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's okay. It sounds like very generic. Like I agree with that writer. When it spits it out, sometimes it can feel very generic.
What are you working on now? What's the next steps?
Yes.
Anything that is coming up in this year, or are we just gonna wait till next
Yeah,
year?
so in the summer, summer, oh my god, the heck. In the winter, I'm gonna be filming just the two of us, finishing that up. We started it last year in the winter, and then unfortunately our director Nick got a little sick. And so he said, you know what? It's okay. We have a full year of projects. Let's put this one on hold. And then when we get to next winter, we will finish this project because it was cold, cold. Like condensation out the mouth, instantly cold. So we're like, okay, instead of refilming the
Yeah,
whole thing, let's just put it on hold. So we're gonna finish that. Um, but the project that I want to allude to and come back is my project, which is Indie. It is a series that I'm going to be trying to pitch. I learned a lot from startup, and I'm applying everything here. It's actually based off of when my uh, short film got into the Culver City Film Festival in LA. I went down there with
yeah.
KJ, our editor, and I kind of watched him. It was his first time out of the state in a long time. And I think it was his second time in LA, but his first time he never attended a single screening. So it was his first time seeing anything of his on screen. And I think I watched him
Wow.
throughout that entire week that we were in LA. And I came up with this idea of indie. Essentially, it's a show about an indie filmmaker going through their career. And so I'm going to be talking to you and a lot of other people that get like experiences because I want to make it feel like when you're watching this young filmmaker go through their career and their ups and downs that it is real and it's not manufactured. I want to, and I also don't want to use
Yeah.
my own biases to write it. I need to, incorporate so many different people because not everybody comes from the same place I am, same thought patterns, even experience the same ups and downs. So I want to make sure that everybody feels represented, and we're also concentrating on the crew more than the cast. Like Entourage is all about actors. Other things are always about specifically the director. But I'm having episodes focus on the MUA, focus on the grip, focus on what a production manager, and it's gonna be, imagine Entourage Atlanta mashed together, but focusing on the crew and not necessarily the actors because we've seen a lot of movies and shows about actors.
What genre?
So it's going to be a dramedy. So it's going to be a drama comedy. Yes, sir.
Good.
I
Nice.
think that fits
Oh,
well.
that sounds
You can
fun.
joke about things that we know and
Yeah.
and have to
Right.
you have
Right.
the emotional story pushing it along. That's as much as I'll say right now, though.
Well, we look forward to hearing from it again when you get near. If there's anything that I can do, want to go on the channel, promote it, talk about it. Let's do it.
So,
Johnny Jones, how can people reach
yes,
you?
you can find me on Instagram, Johnny Jones Official, or our Filthy Filming Productions Instagram as well. I will give you my email if you want to email me. If you want to collaborate, let me know. I am down. If you want my cell phone number, I guess I can give you that too. I'm very open book, and I love to talk with people. Be prepared to talk because I'm a talker, as you probably saw. So.
We will put everything in the show notes. And there's one other thing I want to ask you about, or two things now. Filthy Filmmaker Production.
Filthy Filming, yes, sir. You're gonna ask about the
Filthy
name?
filming. Why filthy?
So, my team, the group that I referred to that we met at the acting class at Mighty Tripod, the first thing we ever did was a 48-hour film festival. And that was the name of our team. And I named the company in homage to the thing that got us started. I would have never created the company if I didn't meet these people, if I didn't do the show. And so I owe a lot of or everything to the group of people that inspired me to move forward. And so I wanted the name to reflect. And even people like the name. I always think like, man, people are gonna think it's like, adult content, but everybody like they always say, oh, don't change the name. It's so funny. So I'm like, all right, I'll keep the name.
Adult content.
I mean, think about it, filthy. I mean, unless it's about garbage, there's only one other thing that's filthy.
I think I asked Louise about that. I was like, why filthy? Because I'm thinking when I see her filthy, I think like filthy rich, right? It's just plentiful. You're just filth.
We'll
A
take
lot
that.
of
Actually, we'll go with that one.
filth.
We'll go with
Yeah.
that one. We're rich in ideas and happiness and talent. There you
Yeah.
go.
I wanted to ask you about. I saw one of your images you were filming with an iPhone. How did that go? What did it meet your expectations? I've never done it before. So
Ooh,
what did that feel like?
man, I'm torn because at one hand, I'm like, yes, it is a great tool. I really do like using. You can use the Black Magic app on the iPhone, but I will say that I'm not a fan of the depth of field a little bit on the iPhone. I feel like if you want to shoot on, F11 or 8 or something like that, then it's fine. But when you start to get too low, you struggle a lot with the iPhone. You don't have the level of control you do with a physical lens. But it was fun. I did not shoot below, I think 8 was the lowest we went, so we didn't have to worry about any craziness there. Uh, it was weird because you probably talking about the when I had it on the gimbal, right? The iPhone on the gimbal because I had it on my Joins. Yeah.
Yeah.
It almost wasn't heavy enough for the gimbal to even realize something was there. So it's pretty funny.
Right.
I didn't have an iPhone gimbal, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna throw on a cage and put my iPhone on my regular gimbal. It's pretty interesting. Uh, if you have the picture, I can send it to you if you want to throw it on the screen.
I think it's because I think this is gonna happen in the future, right? I think this is what Apple's doing their production announcements on an iPhone, using the Blackmagic app. So there's a lot of talk about where this is going. We have rigs that I mean, I got this because it's got, quarter 20s on here. I just mount it, right? And then plus with the depth of field, they have adapters now that you can put the lenses, additional lenses if you want to add that on. So I think with, this is a 14 Pro, so it doesn't have hardly anything like 15, but 16 is probably going to open some doors. But I think there's a lot of people leaning in that direction because let's face it, it's expensive. It's cheaper than buying Black Magic or
I agree, and I've seen film festivals that are geared towards filmed on mobile. So I think you're right. I think there's definitely going to be an entire subgenre of things filmed with phones. Again, I'm not against it. It was rough. It was rough when you're used to filming one way, and then you're like, I'm gonna film this way, and it was different.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to ask your perspective on it because it's kind of like, well, is this something that you would ever do again? Because there's limitations to it.
I would approach filmmaking differently.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would approach it a little differently. I approached it as if I had a Blackmagic or a Sony, and I realized, oh, I should have approached it differently. The only thing I would say I was very happy I did is I screen shared to a TV in my living room, and then everybody in the crew was watching it there, and they were giving me feedback because I was, oh man, I don't know how to.
As
I
you were
was filming,
filming,
I was screen sharing so they could see it, and then I was
wow,
also
that's cool.
touching the
Yeah.
screen to like refocus on different parts as it was happening. And I was like, "Did it work?" They were like, "It looked good," or "No, when you touched it, the screen jiggled." Dang it. Okay, So it was a lot, but it was fun having someone there watching it because what you're seeing on the iPhone
Yeah.
is not necessarily what will be conveyed if when you're done. But editing it was great. I will say the Apple ProRes. I would say editing it was nice. I enjoyed that.
What did you edit it on?
DaVinci. It handled it better than I would say DaVinci handles my Sony 4K. I have to edit on my my Mac if I want to edit my Sony at all. because for some reason my desktop
Oh,
does
okay.
not like to run it smoothly.
What kind of Sony?
The FX30.
Okay. How much RAM is on your Mac?
16. How much RAM is on my desktop? 128.
Interesting. And it won't go on the
It
desktop, huh?
skips nonstop. So I turn off
How bizarre.
GPU. I forget the GPU acceleration. I turn that off. Do a bunch of extra stuff. Make sure nothing else is on my desktop running, and then it'll run it kind of smooth.
Yeah.
Or I can use proxies. So I just use proxies a lot of time. I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but I do what I have to do to edit on my desktop. But I bought a Mac 2 months ago, and now I find myself editing on that more, or my commercial stuff on there more than I do anything else. So I guess I'm a Mac boy now.
I'm a Mac guy. I've always been a Mac guy.
34 years, and I finally swapped over.
Johnny Jones, thank you so much for being on the Diamond Cut, and I appreciate your time. And we will see you in the next podcast.
Joe Downing, thank you very much for having me.
Anyone who wants to reach out, ask questions, leave a comment, get a shout out. If you want to be on this podcast, leave a comment, reach out, put you on. Thank you, Johnny.
All right, thank you.